Who's the boxing show that's knocking out the competition? The kick-ass podcast that make you want to listen. The place where boxing fans and fighters rejoice. Thumbs up for Richie. You're listening to The Fighter's Voice.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Richard Ortiz of The Fighter's Voice, the only voice that matters. And unlike our guests, the Latin Snake, we're simply knocking out the competition. Our next guest, our man right here, went from reality show winner to world champion to one of the best recognized commentators in boxing today. Ladies and gentlemen, SERGIO MORA. Welcome to The Fighter's Voice, my man.
It's a hell of an intro. Thank you, Richard. I'm glad to be here.
Hey, man, you deserve it, man. I'd be reading it all. We'd be here all day. Now, where do you put Regis Prograis in this equation? Arnold Barboza, King Ryan, and also Jose Ramirez.
Well, considering that Taylor already beat Ramirez, Ramirez is not going to be number two. Taylor already beat Prograis, but Prograis came back and won a championship. So I just think it's pretty self-explanatory right there. You got the number one guy in Josh Taylor. You got number two in Prograis. I think number three, that you still have to give Ramirez his due. He's still the man. He's still the man. He bounced back with a nice win. He only got beat by the man in Josh Taylor. I don't think King Ryan Garcia is in the top five yet. He hasn't really established himself as a legitimate 140-pounder. I would put Teofimo ahead of Ryan Garcia. Barboza, I would probably put ahead of Garcia. So yeah, it's an interesting and stacked division, but I think Garcia needs to come back and have another solid victory. If he can knock out another one, top 15 type fighter, then yeah, I would put him in the top five, top six maybe.
What about Devin Haney, eventually moving up to the 140-pound division? When he moves up, will he be granted a title shot, or do you think him a good match would be possibly Arnold Barboza or Jose Ramirez, only because of the footwork? In Devin Haney also dances around, so that would be as a good matchup. As a matchmaker, I would match Devin Haney either with Ramirez in a big fight or Arnold Barboza, only because of the footwork that Ramirez brings in Devin Haney.
Yeah, Haney like Garcia is going to have to prove himself at 142. He became undisputed, and he's the man to beat at 135. But at 140, it's a totally different animal. I mean, those 5 pounds, people think it's just 5 pounds that you're moving up in weight, but in reality, once you rehydrate, you're really dealing with 15-pound advantages. And if you don't have the size to distribute that, your body's not going to develop well into a junior welterweight. Devin Haney has the body, he has the wide shoulders, he's very muscular, and yes, he outgrew 135. So I think he's going to fit in nicely at 140. But if he couldn't knock him out at 135, he's definitely not going to knock him out and hurt him at 140. So I think it's going to be a long hill to climb to 140. And like I said, Garcia, him, Barboza, they got everything against them. They're going to be swimming upstream, including Haney. As talented as I think he is, I just think you're dealing with different beasts at junior welterweight.
Two fighters by pure coincidence share the same manager and both turned down fights with Regis Prograis. One being Jose Ramirez because of the numbers. Two being Arnold Barboza, who really didn't reveal why. I mean, he would have took the fight, I think, with a 3-week notice because we just had a women's fight take place and she only had a 9 days notice taken on Clarissa Shields. Was the numbers a factor for Arnold Barboza? Was it the weight or the time? Why was that fight turned down, in your opinion?
I would give the manager and the fighter credit there for not taking that fight. I made a mistake of taking. Well, because if you're just doing it for the money, then you're a prize fighter. You're not really doing it to become a champion again. Anyone could lose a certain amount of weight just to make weight. But making weight right is half the fight. That's what I like to say. So in order to be at your full best, you have to have a full camp. You can't just shed the weight, cut the weight, and expect to be at firing on all cylinders. It doesn't work that way. So yeah, I think it was a smart idea for them not to take that title opportunity or that big payday opportunity, because either way, you weren't going to be at your best. Very few fighters have, unless you're like a gym rat and you're always in the gym and you're like 5 pounds near your weight, which is like it's a rarity in boxing for a lot of fighters to do that. Then yeah, you can take fights last minute. But if you're 10 plus, 15 plus pounds overweight and you get offered a big fight against a dangerous puncher within less than 2 weeks, yeah, I would say it's a very tricky very tricky offer to accept. And I think it was smart on his management and on Barboza not taking that fight.
That's very well said. A lot of
Rick Morizian, you're talking about. Rick Morizian
Rick
is a
Murrigan,
manager,
yeah, he
right?
manages both Jose Ramirez and Arnold Barboza.
Yeah, Rick is as interesting of a character as people may think he is. He's a smart dude. He knows his boxing.
Well, no one to argue about him being intelligent when it comes to numbers and it comes to his mathematics and money. I'll sit at the table with him too and buy him a steak when it comes to that matter. A lot of it has to deal with some of the decision making outside of boxing that people possibly personally don't agree with. But when it comes to numbers and it comes to endorsements, I would love to have him representing me as well as I see him representing Jose Ramirez and Jose getting those big endorsements that people that kind of look like Sergio would possibly never get.
Yeah, that's a good point. And anytime you got a person working that hard for you and has your back and not just taking opportunities for the money, that shows that they have not only your best interest, but they have longevity on their mind. And longevity is the main thing that boxers forget about. They think it's all about collecting the quick paydays. Well, that quick payday is going to run out. As soon as you get it, cash that check, you lose that fight. The opportunities aren't going to be as big as that opportunity. You're going to have to go back to the drawing board. That drawing board, you get cut 80% of your check, and you got to fight back up to the top. So just by skipping on that one payday and taking those twos and fews, and getting back to the top the right way, that's how you stay in this game long. That's how you get the respect not only from promoters and other fighters, but that's how you get the respect of the fans. You're not just taking fights, fluctuating in weight, and saying, "Well, he'll fight anyone, anytime." Yeah, but you're losing every time you do. So there's no honor in that.
Well, I think that comes to it's going to help Arnold Barboza's negotiations because he is on his last, I believe his contract's over with Top Rank and come August. So why put trying to leave if in fact you do take the L? Now, when you negotiate, you're open and you can still call yourself undefeated. I guess this question would be for the management team, but I want your opinion on this. How difficult is it to manage two fighters in the same weight class and them possibly matching up to one another? What happens? I mean, if in fact they do sign to fight one another, I'm talking about Barboza and Ramirez.
Well, then that's when the money has to be right, because when it comes down to it, that's when you set friendship aside. I mean, I could think off the top of my head, Daniel Jacobs and Derevyanchenko. When they fought, they were trained by Andre Rozier. They trained in the same gym. They trained under the same tutelage, right? So when they got offered a boatload of money to fight, I mean, of course they took the fight. It was a close fight. Derevyanchenko,
Yeah.
had his moments, and it was a close fight. Um, so if the money's right, then the manager leaves it up to the fighters. I mean, I fought, for instance, my last fight was against Perro Angulo. Alfredo Angulo. I've known Angulo since he first came to this country in 2015 when he was
Mean.
fighting on HBO, knocking everyone out, right?
Yep.
And me and him, we would go to war in the gym, right? But I always figure, well, we're never gonna fight. We're never gonna fight. Then, sure enough, my final fight was against Angulo, and I was with Al Heyman, and I remember Luis de Cubas, and Al Heyman was like, "Hey, Alfredo said he'll take the fight. Do you want the fight?" I'm like, "Are you serious?" He said he'll take the fight. So I text Alfredo. I go, "You want the fight?" I go, "Hey, man, you want the fight? I want the fight." All right, let's do it then. Stuff like that, then it's business. It's business,
It is
So
business.
if the manager gets the money right and the fighters are on point, do it.
I mean, speaking of war, I just got to say, you and Shane Mosley, my God, I never seen anybody neutralize Shane Mosley's speed as you did, and I'm just keeping it real and being honest. Moving right along, does Shakur Stevenson move up to 140? What advice would you give him, or does he stay at 135 to possibly get the super fight with Davis?
No, he should stay at 135 because he's coming up from 130.
Yes.
He's going to be the toughest to beat. We're talking about the creme de la creme here, Richard. We're talking about like
Yes.
the most talented young fighters that are about to take over boxing. They're already on the cusp of being the next in line. And I would say Shakur may not be the most popular, the most marketable, but he's definitely the toughest to beat out of all of them. I'm talking, including Tank, including all these guys that we're mentioning, Devin Haney. I think Shakur Stevens is the hardest stylistically to beat. He has the hand speed, the power, that pedigree, the southpaw, his height, the body punching, and he's growing into his power. He's going to be difficult to beat. So if you don't have to fight a guy like that, you don't do it.
Does Devin Haney defend at 135 or relinquish and move up to 140s and possibly take on Shakur Stevenson at 135s?
Yeah, that's a question that only Devin Haney and Team Haney know, because only a fighter knows how much he's struggling to make that weight, and just to make, to sacrifice to make weight just to defend belts. That's how you end up taking an L. That's how you end up either getting hurt or losing badly and then blaming the weight and then moving up. Uh, this is a decision that Team Haney has to make. If I were Haney, I would sacrifice at 135. He's still 24 years old. He has age on his side, but he is a big boy. He is a growing boy.
He's a big boy for 135.
I mean, look, in his last fight at the weigh-in, he looked great, but the fight before that, he looked like sickly. He looked bad. So it all depends on, I guess, his next fight. Maybe a catch weight. How about that? Maybe he could do a catch weight. I know people hate catch weights, but if there's no title on the line, what does it matter?
That was never brought up. That's a great topic to bring up. And the godfather of catch weight was Sugar Ray Leonard. He invented the catch weight. A lot of people don't remember. If there was ever a blueprint for Floyd Mayweather, it was Sugar Ray Leonard always negotiating. Even when he came back against Hagler, they wanted certain gloves, the ring size, and what have you. How would you compare today's fighters to the Four Kings, if at all there is a comparison? And if there is, who's worthy of being compared to the Four Kings?
I can't compare them to the Four Kings. I mean, I was born in the 80s, so I didn't watch these guys fight, but my trainer forced me to watch these guys fight, and they're fighting at their absolute. Here's the difference: they're fighting at their absolute peak, which is in their mid-20s. Leonard and Hearns fought at 25. He fought Duran at 24. I'm talking about Leonard. He fought Hagler. Come on, man. These guys are. You got Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford in their mid-30s or 35. I'm not taking anything away. They're still the best of the best, but you're not in your prime at 35 anymore. The generation is different because they're getting a lot more money now. So whenever you're getting paid that much money, you're allowed to be inactive. And Sugar Ray Leonard did call all the shots in all his fights, but not a lot of fighters have that leverage. So that's probably the big difference. And here's the thing: even with Sugar Ray Leonard, to stay on topic, even in between fights, he was still fighting killers. He wasn't taking soft touches. He was still fighting undefeated fighters. Like what's one in between fight that he had? He fought an undefeated fighter, the Hawk. What's his name? His name's slipping by me. But undefeated fighter. Ayub Kalulu, that's another fighter.
Oh yeah, no, Abib Kaluli.
That's the one I'm thinking
Kaluli,
about, and I'm also thinking about another guy.
Yes,
I'm thinking about him, and I'm thinking about another guy named the Hawk. His nickname was the Hawk, African American fighter, undefeated. But anyway, my point is that was his in between fights. Undefeated fighters, hungry fighters.
I need to look that up because the only Hawk that I know was Aaron Pryor and the knockout artist. One of my favorite fighters too. He lost to Gerald McClellan, and that was Julian Jackson. Oh my gosh, he would put people to sleep.
Yeah, he's the original Hawk. Yeah, his name's slipping by me, but he was a trainer in Los Angeles, and I used to spar his fighters. And he used to talk about when he fought Sugar Ray Leonard and how much of a beast he was. His name's slipping by me right now, but
when you find out, you got to text me that name, man. I'm
gonna text you right after this. Right after this, I'll text you.
Yeah, I remember Kaluli. That's right. And because you took it way back then. And Sugar Ray Leonard also brought Donnie Lalonde from 175 to like 168 and made him come down in weight and was able to win that light heavyweight title.
And the funny thing, Richard, is that, you want to say that him and Hearns were fight division champions. No, Tommy Hearns is a legitimate fight division champion.
Absolutely.
Ray, I love you, but he won 2 weight divisions in one night. And with 168, 175 from Donnie Lalonde. So that's not how it's done, especially nowadays. But when you have that much leverage, like Sugar Ray, you get away with it.
And see, the thing about it is Tommy Hearns went up to 175, took on Dennis Andres, then came back down to middleweight, and then Juan Rodon. But Juan Rodon, he was a tough cookie too. He
He
didn't just
was.
lay down for anybody.
Yeah, he was, and there wasn't a 168 division back then either. So then when that division opened up, Tommy Hearns
Yeah,
fought for that title as well.
yeah.
Uh,
He fought James Kitchen, and James Kitchen looked good that night.
there he did, my man.
That was a good fight.
Man, you're a historian. Look at you. I love it,
Hey
Richard. I
man, I'll
love
take
it.
that as a compliment coming from one of the best commentators in the world.
I love talking boxing with people that know boxing, man.
Well, hey man, it's long awaited too that we got to get you on the show. And let's talk about Bud Crawford and Spence. We mentioned that we tasted the 140-pound division, and we'll move on, and we'll have more answers once this weekend's fight takes place. Bud Crawford, Errol Spence, it's finally going to happen. We can say, okay, should have happened a long time ago. Okay, what are we going to do? Complain and not watch it? It's here,
No,
whether we
hell
want
no.
it
Of
or
course you're
not,
gonna
and
enjoy
it's
it.
going to be a blockbuster show.
Yeah, I mean, you can always nitpick. I mean, look, Mayweather Pacquiao was way too late, but we all watched and it broke records,
We
and
did.
whether you liked it or not, you watched, and we're all gonna watch. We're all gonna watch Crawford Spence. It's gonna be an amazing fight. Every other week I switch my prediction on who wins that fight. Sometimes I'm
You and me
Crawford,
both.
sometimes I'm Spence. Sometimes I say no, Spence is gonna be a little bit too big for him. He's a naturally bigger fighter, natural
He
welterweight.
is.
He fills out nicely after the weigh-in. He's much bigger than Crawford. But then I see how Crawford has been building muscle and filling out, and he's just mean, man. Both these, as a matter of fact, Terrence Crawford reminds me of Josh Taylor. Not only that they could switch and they could fight from that southpaw angle, but they're mean. They fight with that chip on their shoulder, and they fight killers. They fight good opponents, and they make them look average. Uh, not taking anything away or knocking Spence. The dude's an animal too, future Hall of Famer. Um, but yeah, I, I can't wait. I can't wait. If Spence could land the body shots, I think he can eventually start getting the attention of Crawford and maybe break him down. But if he doesn't land those body shots and Crawford is coming up with uppercuts and those long hooks from the long
Yeah.
arms and then boxing and moving and fighting on the inside, and yeah, it's just going to be a blockbuster event, man. Blockbuster fight. It really is a 50-50 fight.
Spence, when he stands in the southpaw stance, he reminds me a lot of Michael Nunn. Just his stance alone, and I will say Devin Haney kind of reminds me of I like the comparison of a modern day, possibly not the same pop, but of Terry Norris. Just the way he was able to box and slip, and just his hand speed. I've always said I got Bud Crawford winning at 147, but I have Spence stopping Bud Crawford at 154, only because the mass that he puts on, he's naturally the bigger man. But I mean, I guess we're just gonna wait and see. And Bud Crawford
Right.
is he's mean in there as well.
No, and he's relentless too. He has that killer instinct where winning a decision is not enough. Um,
Yes.
some guys cruising to the finish line. This guy wants to beat you down to submission. Those fighters like that are going to be dangerous from round 1 to round 12. And Spence, he likes to dominate fights. I'm not saying he takes rounds off, but he keeps his gloves up, and he sometimes he sometimes takes his breaks with his gloves up, and he doesn't continue with the combinations. That's when Crawford could start punching from both angles,
Yes.
boxing, getting the angles. Uh, yeah, I mean, can't wait. I can't wait. I mean, I picture that fight in my head, and I see both of them, doing good stuff. Both of
I,
them,
I do I do too.
having their moments, and whoever takes the bigger shot, and you have to favor the bigger man, taking the bigger shots. But you never know.
I think we see Bud Crawford coming in the same mentality that he when he fought Jose Benavidez. I mean, when he took a swing at him, he just that's I don't think he'll disrespect Spence that way, but just that mentality, because that day he was not losing to anybody.
Yeah, but Benavidez wasn't really a
Yeah, one
championship
leg.
caliber fighter. You know, I want to go watch Spence Porter. I would say that's going to be even though
Yeah.
the uh, the height and the reach and the fighting style is different, but the magnitude of the importance, the both of them high level championship fighters. both of them got hurt in that fight, or both of them got rocked in that fight. That's the way I kind of see it, but stylistically different, of course, when you're dealing with two fighters that are totally different, Porter and Crawford. Uh, but I was there at that event, and if Porter Spence was roaring inside that arena, I could only imagine, Crawford Spence, and all that. Oh, that fight's gonna be insane.
And that's gonna be crazy. I mean, Porter's a dog. If I was a manager, I'd keep my fighter away from Porter because win, lose, or draw, you're not gonna look good against this guy.
Hey, luckily for all managers, he's retired. But no, I agree. He's he's like a pit bull, man.
Yeah, he's in your chest, man. Great guy, nice guy, and we'll do it the Porter way. Shout out to Porter and his podcast. If in fact Bud Crawford is successful, does he stay at 147 and take on the likes of Virgil Ortiz? Let me say this: does the winner stay down and take on Virgil Ortiz,
Yes.
or is there a rematch possibly at 154, or is there a chance they take on one of the Charlo brothers?
No, I think Charlos are out of the question. Charlos are big fighters. They're more looking at 160, 168. I don't think Bud will do well north of 147. I think he can hang at 154, but I think all this power was. I mean, all his menacing ways were at 140, 147. Uh, and with Spence, maybe he can go up to 160. He has the body frame for it. If he wins, I could see him maybe facing a Charlo, but I think Charlo's too big for Bud Crawford. I think his avenue is more Virgil Ortiz, and Ortiz wants that fight. He's the number one mandatory. He wants that fight. I'm sorry, Alexis Rocha also wants that fight.
Yeah,
He's the number one mandatory for WBO. So I can see Bud being a businessman. After taking the big fight, that big pay-per-view money, making a boatload of money and making history, saying, all right, I'm gonna take a break from these champions. I'm gonna give one of these contenders a shot. Dangerous contender, Virgil Ortiz or Alexis Roach is still gonna be dangerous, but they're not on the level of Bud yet. As much as I love both them guys, I think Roach and Ortiz are the future too. But Crawford is still the man.
So you really didn't give a winner for this weekend's fight. If you, I'm not asking you to pay your bet your mortgage on it, but if you had an extra dollar just laying around and you just said, you know what, I want to get rid of this dollar, but you want to invest in it, who do you have winning this fight Saturday?
Taylor or Teofimo?
No. I'm sorry. Bud Crawford and Bud Crawford and Spence, the topic that we were on.
All right. Well, right now I will have to go with Errol Spence just on size. Both of them have great resumes, but size is going to be a factor. Body punching is going to be a factor, and the fact that Spence, has a great guard. It was Raul Marquez that said that Errol Spence fights Mexican style, and I watch Errol Spence, and I'm thinking, you know what? He is Texas born. He's a Texas fighter. He was groomed around a lot of Mexicans. The body shots are there. He does have that Mexican style, and I would have to favor him slightly, just slightly. I don't know why. That's just my thought.
I was going to ask you that too. Does a fight initiate itself in the center of the ring? Which man takes the first backward step? Does Bud naturally go into a counter mode, or does he or does he try to put the pressure on Spence?
No, I don't think Spence goes backwards at all. I don't think we've seen him box backwards. He doesn't. I don't think he fights backwards.
No.
But we've seen, Crawford box backwards. He's not moving. He's boxing. He's trapping you. He's luring you in.
Exactly.
He's switching. He's filling out the ring. He's filling out your speed, your counter, your technique. So he's moving. He's boxing. He's setting you up for something. And you're never safe with Crawford. So yeah, I think the back foot is going to be definitely with Crawford. That's I could see happening from the first or second round.
See, I wanted to say that right off the bat. Who takes the back foot right off the bat? But I got a little intimidated by you, Sergio. I was thinking, well, now he should stick to what he knows. He's never been in the ring, but that's the illustration I was going to use, and I should have. I'll never second guess myself ever again. Let me say this: which man takes the better punch out of the two?
Great question. I think now I would have to probably say Crawford. Just because we're not accustomed to seeing them get hit often, but then we have seen them get rocked by Igis Kavalauskas. He rocked Crawford. And Spence, we haven't really seen him get rocked. We've seen him get punched, but we haven't seen him get rocked. So I like the way that Crawford reacted to that punch, and then also you got to take in consideration everything that Errol Spence has been through. I mean, he's like unbreakable, like Bruce Willis and Unbreakable. You know, he he gets in car accidents. He's always, I mean,
I
he
was about to
survived
say
that.
that.
God bless, but
Yeah.
the man is. It feels like he's indestructible, you know, and he has that mentality. But I would think it has to catch up. So I would favor Crawford on taking the better punch.
I was about to say that. I was about to say, so the man got knocked out of a car and he's back in the boxing game. I mean, when
His
we didn't
teeth
even know
got
if he was going
knocked
to
out,
recover, if
man.
he
I
was going
mean,
to be okay,
Richard, his
lost his
teeth got
grill.
knocked out. You know, he had to
Yes.
have surgeries. I mean, all that's bound to catch up to a person. He's human. I mean,
Yeah.
he's only human. So that's the reason I would favor Crawford with taking the better punch. But I would favor Spence to the body, though. I think he can hurt the skinnier fighter. I think, you know, he can maybe catch him. You know, if he does hurt Crawford, it's going to be to the body. It's going to be to the body and then maybe uppercuts or something. But we got to wait and see.
Is any man willing to take the leave it in the judge's hands on a close fight? Is willing to take the decision, or will they press the fight if one fighter is in fact hurt?
I think they both have the temperament to press it. I think they both have the temperament to press it until someone relents or gives in or gets knocked out or something. Someone gets hurt, or even if it's a knockdown where it makes it more convincing for the judges. It doesn't have to
Yeah.
be a knockout, just a convincing beatdown or, you know, a convincing win. You know, would do it. Like I said, similar to Porter Spence was a good fight,
Yeah.
entertaining fight,
That knockdown
somewhat
made the
close
difference.
fight,
A lot
but
of
that
people thought.
knockdown made the difference. And
Yes.
Spence, you could tell that he wasn't worried and leaving it in the judges' scorecard. I think something similar like that for Spence would be all right. And with Crawford, um, yeah, I think he's going to probably have to visibly hurt Spence to get the respect of everyone watching.
I agree with you, and you brought up something that I was been thinking about the last couple months. Um, Showtime Sean Porter, man, his phone has to be ringing off the hook once this fight gets closer because he has the common ground with both men. So long as
Mm.
he leaves some space, 45 minutes for the fighter's voice to come back on the podcast, I want to get his take too, man. And when I do have him on the show, I'm going to shoot you some the opportunity to throw some questions his way, and I'll say this is coming from the Latin Snake. Your professionalism and how you know boxing up and down, and you're able to break it down and not just talk mess, but you know exactly what you're talking about. Is there any fight out there that you're looking forward to besides the two that I mentioned, or a possible matchup? Who would you like to see share the ring in any weight division?
Canelo Benavidez. I think that would be the biggest Mexican fight you can make on a Mexican weekend, Cinco de Mayo or September
September.
16th. Uh, um, we got to see Joshua, you know, Joshua Fury. I would love to see that fight, even though it's not what it was a couple of years ago. I would still want it. Bevo Beterbiev, that's a monster fight.
Oh
On
yes.
the smaller weight divisions, you know, I mean, I'm looking forward to Chocolatito having one last fight, but I don't want it to be against anyone dangerous like the monster, you know.
No.
So
Yeah.
I would like to see Chocolatito back against one of these, you know, maybe against Bam Rodriguez.
I
That's
was
a
about
big
to say
fight.
that. How would he match up
That's a
against
big
Bam
fight.
Rodriguez coming from the broken jaw?
On the female level, you know, I want to see, you know, Katie Taylor, you know, get the rematch with Chantel Cameron. I want to see Sinisa Estrada with Yoka Valle. That's going to be big. I want to see Alicia Baumgarter, you know, do her thing on the big stage.
What
Maybe
about
get a rematch with
McCatskill?
Michaela Meyer. I'm sorry.
What about McCatskill? Who'd you match her up with? Is
You
she in the
know,
running still in the big fight?
I think McCaskill needs to come back and have she needs to put her name on people's minds again with another
Okay.
dominating win. You know, whenever she's in her mid to late 30s, I think now,
Yeah.
and you know she got beat by a slightly younger fighter. But if she comes back and dominates like she has, then yeah, she's right back in the mix. And you know, 140, 147 is always there's always a lot of competition. I heard Cecilia Brækhus is making a comeback. Maybe that rematch would be great for McCaskill. But yeah, there's a lot of fights out there. A lot of fights.
How serious do you take this fight? How exciting will it be? And does it tarnish the sport of boxing? And I'm talking about Jake Paul and Nate Diaz.
You know, I had a lot to say when Jake Paul was fighting on the zone, and all of it was negative. And I still think that they're not boxers. So I'm going to stick to everything I said. I meant what I said. But, and here's the big hairy but, Richard, they did create their own avenue, their own space. Todd Grisham calls those fights, and he says, man, they're just as exciting, if not more exciting than championship level fights, because people don't care about the technique and the skill and the punch resistance. They don't give a shit. They show up for these two popular guys with a large following, and these kids, they blow the roof off, and they pay tickets and they buy it. So look, I get it. Business wise, all respect to Jake Paul, all respect, and it takes a lot of pride for me to swallow to say that. But hey, he created an avenue, and he's laughing all the way to the bank. So congratulations to him. Now you got a lot of these other YouTube fighters and doing it now. So hey, credit to them, man. They're making a lot of money, and they still have to have the balls to get in the ring. Not any man could do that. So you gotta have some level of respect for them. Not as boxers, just as men making a living that have the balls to do what we do.
And selling out, and I mean, getting butts in the seats. I would have never thought Top Rank Boxing would be promoting Jake Paul or signing a deal with Showtime Boxing. I mean, talk about reaching for the stars, and he's still in there. He's still out there being very active. What gets me is I asked a young kid, he was talking about, it was at a gym. Shout out to Daniel Gonzalez Boxing Gym in Madera, California. There was a kid there. And I said, who's your favorite boxer, bud? He goes, Jake Paul. And I was just, okay. And I didn't want to crush his world. I didn't want to say, what about this guy or this? I go, okay. I left it at that. And it's the popularity. It's the limelight. It's the, it is what it is.
Hey, listen, celebrity, followers, popularity, that brings a lot of money to the table. I mean, look, how the hell did Donald Trump become president of the United States? It happened. Yeah. Celebrity, no experience, not Ronald good at what Reagan he does, too. But he became president of the United States. And you know what? Has a great following, loyal. They will probably want him to be president again. So that's my comparison to these influencers, these boxers that, they don't have the skill, they don't have the experience, the backing, but who cares? They got the following, and they're going to put butts in seats. They're going to make a lot of money.
Let's stay on the celebrity status, because what I've always thought about, and I asked Mario Lopez this one time. I said, if you were ever to share the ring with another celebrity, who would it be? And he says, I respect everybody. I'm not really going to call anybody out, but I would love these guys just to go 3 rounds for a charity event, and maybe the last round take the headgear off. Mark Wahlberg and Mario Lopez. What do you think about that matchup?
I sparred Mario Lopez in 2005, and he asked me not to hit him in the face. And I told him, well, of course I'm not going to hit you in the face. You make a living getting hit in the face. Look at me. You don't want to end up looking like me. I would favor Mark Wahlberg in that fight, because Mark Wahlberg could fight as well. Both these guys could fight. But I think Mark Wahlberg actually has gotten punched in the face, actually has, been gritty in sparring before. I think he probably grew up a little tougher than Mario, but that would be a popular fight. I would watch. I would pay to watch it. But I would favor Mark Wahlberg. Yeah.
I interviewed Ali Setback about 9 months ago, and I said, "Hey, in a celebrity bout, who would you like to share the ring with?" And without hesitation, he said Stephen A. Smith. What do you think of that matchup? Is it good for a good cause, a good fundraiser? Would people tune in for that?
I don't think all respect to Ellie, but I don't think he's as big as Stephen A. Smith. I mean, Stephen A. Smith has millions and millions of fans and followers, and Ellie, as great as he is as a videographer and a reporter, and I got all the love for him. It has to have the even popularity status, so I just think, and it's not going to be the same age, size, weight. I would actually favor Ellie to beat Stephen A. Smith, but I'm just thinking as a promoter, will that fight sell? And I don't think it would.
So what's next in the life of Sergio Mora? I mean, you reinvented yourself as a commentator. Was that something that you thought you would do eventually, or did it just come naturally to you, or it was just something that you were always chasing and just kept it behind your head because after you won the world title?
Have you ever seen the movie Cool Hand Luke with Paul Newman?
Yes. Yes.
When he's always trying to break out of jail, and they tell him, "Oh, that was beautiful, man. The plan you had." And he laughs. He goes, "Man, I never planned anything a day in my life." That's pretty much me, man. I don't plan anything. God has been good to me. I
Amen.
just have a solid rule. I don't, when I'm high and hot and on the way up, I don't look down on anyone, because when I'm going down, I'm gonna be seeing the same people coming up. So just treat them good when they're down. Treat them good when they're up, and then you'll get your opportunities. But and I was aware that in boxing, as an athlete, not just boxers, but athletes, after they're done with their sport, they have nothing else to do, because they have no experience, they have no job experience, they have no education, they have nothing to do. All they do, they put all their eggs in one basket, and now the only thing they can do is either coach, train, or talk the sport that you dedicated your life to. But there's only a certain amount of jobs at networks, maybe a handful, so it's only going to go to 4 or 5 fighters. And then as far as training, I mean, it takes a lot to find that golden boy to groom, and that's going to take 5 to 10 years. And yeah, so no, I didn't plan anything, man. I just, like I said, I love the sport, and when I was done boxing, I knew I was going to retire. Um, I was going to retire from boxing. I wasn't going to let it retire me. And then from there, I was getting gigs way before the Zone, on ESPN,
Yeah, I
on
remember.
with Al Heyman. He gave me some jobs on Fox Sports One. Yeah, I was doing little gigs here and there. So I was already having my feet head in the right direction.
Well, I bring this up because I remember I texted you one time. You said, "Oh, Rich, I'm not a blow by blow person." I remember this was a while back, but now that I have the chance that I brought it up, you're on my bucket list as far as I would love one day to call a fight with you, sit down next to you and call a fight. It'd be an honor and a privilege. You are on my bucket list. Just know that I've watched you, I've studied you, I listened to the vocabulary you use, your energy, when you come in, when you correct somebody, or when you bring a topic back in. I mean, I've listened to your stuff, man, from start to finish. So
Yeah,
just let you're
those
on
are
my
all things
bucket
that you
list.
those are all things that you pick up on the job, right? And as far as the energy, if you're working next to a guy like Todd Grisham and you don't bring no energy, he's gonna go through the fucking roof, and then you're gonna come in with, yeah, and that was a good jab. It doesn't mesh, you know what I'm saying?
Yes,
But then when
exactly.
you're working with a guy like Brian Kenny, who stays in one tone all the single time, and he explains every single part of the action, and you just want to try to get your spot, get in and get out with your spots, and then you work with the personalities that you're given, but you got to understand you're not Michael Jordan. They are. You're Scottie Pippen, and sometimes you're not even him. You're probably John Paxson or someone
I
waiting for a 3-pointer.
I said that I said, and I used the illustration that when I got next to some commentators, everybody wants to be Batman.
Yeah.
And mentally, I wasn't ready to be Robin, but I needed to be Robin depending on who I was next to. Um, Also, I love Ray Flores, the way he his vocab, the way he breaks the words so clear. He reminds me, I would call him the Eminem of commentating, because his vocabulary is just strong. It's starch. It's sharp.
And Ray is, he's good at a lot of things. So he can, I mean, I worked PBC shows with Ray, and he would literally introduce the fighters, and in the red corner, and in the blue corner, and then he'll take off that, he'll put a headset. All right, and here we go on Fox PBC. Next to me, Latin Snake, Sergio Mora, and here we go. And I'm thinking, and then he'll put that down and announce the winner. Ray Flores is a very talented man. And then he can go from there to go in the middle of the ring and interview both fighters. And then from there, he can go and do the post and pregame, the pregame and the post show. So yes, Ray has been around a very long. I mean, he hasn't been around a long time, but he's made a lot with the time he's been given, and I'm a big. I respect Ray Flores.
Toscano's Boxing Promotions and Shally Hollis, you know exactly who's done that before, and it's very tough, but it's very exciting. I want to take this time real quick, Sergio. I'll share this story with you. I went to Ross, Dress for Less. I went to return something. Well, they said it didn't match up on the receipt. So I left. The area was having a little bit of concern. So I asked for a manager. This manager looked at everything, took care of it completely. And I promised I would give her a shout out on the show. This is to Genesis and Ross Department Store, Fresno, California. Thanks for taking care of me. Thanks for following the fighter's voice, the only voice that matters. And I appreciate you as being a great manager, Genesis. So there's my.
Hey, that was very nice of you, Richard. Hey, shout out to Genesis. That's awesome, man. I mean, nothing like customer service, and the fact that you did that says a lot about you, man. Respect.
Well, thank you, brother. I appreciate that, man, and I appreciate you taking time to be on the show. Even though it was kind of last minute notice, that's not the way I like to operate. You just came to mind. And I said, you know what, I'm going to go after this guy, and I did. I was persistent. You accepted, and you feel at home here. And I like to have you back on the show, maybe do a recap on the winter. And I know your schedule is crazy, but how do we stay in contact with you? How do we follow you? What's your social media? What's your Twitter? What's your handle on IG?
What's at the Latin Snake _ on Twitter and Instagram. I'm not much of the picture guy. I'm more of the typing word type. So yeah, on Twitter, you'll catch me being more active. But as far as these podcasts, Richard, the first one's free.
I
Like I
appreciate
tell Chris Mannix.
very well said. I remember you told me that at the bar with your buddy. You were that at the bar. I was going. I don't think he was kidding.
I told Chris Mannix this the very first time, and then from there, I have to hound him for Laker tickets. I have to hound him for $300 or $500. I have to hound him for dinners. I have to hound him. He still owes me money. Chris Mannix, you cheapskate, pay up.
Okay, well, what I'm going to do, okay, I got the first podcast free. When I see you back at Fresno or close to LA, I'm going to interview you where you're at. That won't be the podcast. That'll be like a post-fight or pre-fight interview. How's that?
That I am in. You got it.
All right. We got a show coming up. I shouted out Daniel Gonzalez Boxing. They got a show July 15th at Table Mountain. And as we get closer, if you could possibly shoot maybe a 11-second video, because they're going to have the video there on giving some fighters in the amateurs just a word of advice. Last time I had Regis Prograis, he did something, and the fighters, they just strived off it. And a lot of people who didn't know who Regis was, they know now because they looked it up and they were just fascinated by it. So I may hit you up during that time, and it will be on there. I will tag you. I will tag Gonzalez Boxing Team, and we'll make sure that you get a Fighter's Voice hat, a hoodie, and a Daniel Gonzalez Boxing Academy t-shirt as well.
Hey, save the merchandise. I'll do it for free. Just text me.
Okay, well, I'm going to send you a Fighter's Voice t-shirt anyway, so you can rock out on that.
All right, well, then I'll take it. If you're giving it away, I'll take it. But yeah, no, I'll definitely do it, man. I mean, they're the next generation, and these guys, if a video like that can help them and motivate them, it costs nothing for me.
No, you know what? You made me smile because I appreciate and I know your value and what you bring, your expertise. I've had a lot of people on here, big names, huge names, Hall of Famers on there. I get a text message from Lee Samuels every so often asking me to break down a fight. To me, I'm flattered by it. But you know your boxing inside and out. I appreciate you coming back on, and just being on and taking the time, man. And you've been a solid guest, and your answers are all 9.5 to 10s, man.
Appreciate you, Richard. And like I said, I'm a text away. All you gotta do is let me know the time and remind me. And I'm in. I appreciate what you do, man. You know you're boxing. You know you're boxing, especially in the '80s. You know you're anytime I'm dealing with a person that knows not only the world champions, but who they faced and when they faced them and why they faced them. That's when you know your stuff, man. And I appreciate that. So yeah, it's on.
Thank you, brother. Hey, I want to thank our guest, the Latin Snake, ladies and gentlemen, for taking time and rocking with the Fighter's Voice, the only voice that matters. And we're like Sergio Mora. We're simply knocking out the competition. As always, it's a wrap. Thumbs up for Richie.
Así pues.
Okay, fight fans, it's not goodbye, but until next week.
Remember,
It's always voiceography at its finest. So on behalf of Richard Ortiz, the special guests, and all the crew, saying hasta luego, babies. And always, thanks for listening.